Hey Nick, how's everything going?
Hey Josh, let me just hit this got it button. Good. How are you on this Thursday?
Not bad, not bad. Just actually preparing to go out of town this weekend and for next week. It's gonna be a hectic week, but you know,
Yeah, it's the end of the year. It's I have this thing, it's like a superstition, right? I talk to my wife about it a lot in my family. I tend to do better in even numbered years, not odd. Oh, I'm sorry. This is what? This is
even
22. So no, odd is better than even.
okay.
Like uh I'm waiting for next year essentially, because this year has been just that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Last year, no matter what I touched, it like turned to gold, you know? Same 2 years
Oh,
before that.
well, it
But
was
this
it
year
was
is
the
sort
same
of
thing
like
for everyone
trading.
last year, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, everything was gold last year,
that's true.
and
That's
now all
true.
that gold is shit. So,
But I feel like it's sort of like you train, you go to the gym
yeah,
and it's you have to put in these miles, you have to put in this time
yep,
in the gym to where when the summer comes or whatever and you go to the beach, you can show off your body. And that's what I feel this year has kind of been like. It's been a dungeon, and we're just kind of grinding in the dungeon and working and
yeah,
sharpening our skill set. I've been hearing on different social media platforms that these times are gonna filter out those wannabes, that are in real estate, but
yep,
maybe by the circumstances alone and not by their merit. And
yep.
so I'd like to think that these times we sharpen our skills, we work on our fundamentals, we work on our basics, and next year when things are better for whatever reason, whether it's superstition or economy or whatnot, we're going to be in a better spot, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy you say that because like from the pandemic until now, so in 2020, there was a lot of people that kind of transitioned to be more that like, oh, I want to transition to be a realtor. I want to transition to do wholesaling part-time or that were able to do it and transition to a full-time wholesaler or even like something, tech during 2020, and then it got better in 2021. But then heading into 22, all these newbies are stepping in this arena like, wait a minute, like how come it's not so easy anymore, like what's going on? And what they're realizing is they never learned the basics. It was like this I don't know, it was just too easy. It was like, oh, like I could go out there and sell real estate, or I could go out there and wholesale property and make 5, 10, 15K like nothing. And you just had a ton of people like that. And then this year came in, and it's a true test of your ability in what kind of market, and it's actually filtering out a lot of the people. So I was in my CE class, what's today, Thursday, so Tuesday, and the guy, he actually works for the commission and everything like that here in Nevada, and he says that we're down to around between 15 to 16,000 realtors now.
Wow.
And I think
Yeah.
last year we were up to around 22 to like 23,000. So it's filtered out a lot so far. And he's like, don't be surprised if we're down to around like 8 to 10,000 realtors, and some of you are going to still be here, but the competition is going to be less, which is better for you guys. But that's the way it's going, and that's where I see it's headed based on the numbers. And so people are going to start going back to normal jobs, and just because it's not so it's inflated with just
Mhm.
like how the markets were just crazy. Like you can put money in any stock and just pull out. You can put money in any like real estate and just have a ton of money. Now
Yeah.
opposite. It's like now you got to play the game.
I know. The other day I checked the MLS in Las Vegas and I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, new listings. It was 13. I go,
Wow.
what?
Did you
Is that
check
a
to see?
typo?
Did you check to see how many listings there were total, like active?
No, I didn't. Did you?
No, I haven't. I haven't checked probably like 3-4 weeks. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to. I don't want to see those numbers because it probably just adds up every week. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, like with this rate hike, we just had an increase, right? We're
Yep,
due for another
yesterday,
increase next year,
next
and
month,
it is affecting our business in a big way.
yeah,
So that's what I wanted to chat with you about is who do you think, because ultimately we have a product and then we present it to buyers.
yep,
Like without the end buyer, we don't have a business.
yep,
And so we're so used to dealing with B2B, right? Or business to business sales.
yep,
And for the most part, it's very numbers driven, numbers oriented people. It's very little emotion involved. They look at the deal for the merits of the deal itself and make a decision or pull the trigger based on that.
yep.
But my question to you would be, for who does it make sense to buy now? Like, who benefits from buying in this market? Like, there's still going to be activity. I still see
Oh, yeah.
pending deals on MLS. So who should buy right now?
It's like that's the thing is like if you look back in history and let's say the market crash, right, of 2008, there were still people buying from 2007, which it started to slow down all the way through until 2010. Was there a lot of sales? No, there wasn't a lot of sales, but people were still buying. And and that comes till to today. Like who's our buyer? And we're actually at the same rates as we were during the crash of 2008, and we're supposed to go up a little bit further next month, and potentially again January, February, another half basis point. And like who is the buyer? So like with investors will always buy just because they always see like it's like okay, I could see the long term of it, which is I could rent it out. Now, can you flip it? If you get it for a good price, you can temporarily flip it, and you have to put some padding on there to be able to sell it and with the price drop because you have to expect the price drop. Normal consumer, I don't know if the first time home buyer would be the fit. I would say no in my opinion. And even the maybe the second home buyer, the one that already has a property, but that person that already has a property, like majority of people cannot buy another house without being able to sell their first house in order to get a bigger one or a smaller one.
Sure.
And maybe it is that person that is able to keep that first house and then buy a second, third, or fourth house. Maybe it is that person, that'd be the only person I see, because if you go and you have a house and you go in and sell it, and most likely, you got a rate because everyone refinanced within the last, couple of years, you got a rate under 3.5%. And if you buy in this market, after yesterday, the rates are now around like 7.3 to 7.5 base, and that's after a buy down. And all the lenders right now, and that's how banks are making their money, is off of buy downs. And the reason why they're making money off buy downs is because everyone knows that the rate should, I'm not saying it will, it should go down within the next couple of years. And that's not a guarantee, and who knows if this inflation is going to last for within the next year with this increase of interest rates, so that's the thing. And being a first time home buyer, I don't see it at all. Like I don't know. I like who do you think would be the buyer in this market?
I was just thinking about the example I was giving you earlier about my wife's cousin who got completely priced out. He's a Vegas born, and he was part of that group of people that were complaining, like, what the hell? California's coming in here bullying us out of our own motherland, like we can't even buy a house here. I'm a hardworking blue collar guy. Here's my pre-approval for $300K. I've been riding around with my realtor. That was like some of the conversations I had with him because I'm in the real estate space. I almost never work with family, so he kind of was just venting to me, He's like, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, I don't know, buddy. Maybe you just don't look at a house. Maybe you start smaller. Maybe you look at a condo or just owning something is better than renting. That was my kind of sentiment at the time. But to answer your question, I was just thinking about him. I was almost going to hit him up and say, well, right now the ball might be in your corner. Sure, the rate is higher, but let's say you get that same qualification for 300K. Maybe you'll be able to dictate better terms on the purchase price because it is a buyer's market now. It's definitely not seller's market. Perhaps you could buy down the rate, and you're not 80 years old or whatever, 70 years old. You're not up there in age. You still have plenty of time to work hard and pay the higher payment. Okay, we know you're gonna have a higher payment on your house, but at least you're gonna own it. You're gonna get it at a much lower price on the entry point. And then you are hoping, I am hopeful, kind of like you maybe, that the rates will be coming down at some point. So let's say for 5 years he has to take that higher payment, but in 6, 7, 8 year, maybe now he can refi and chop that rate in half. And now he's got the house. He's going to eventually have a lower payment with the refinancing being there. And I just think for single people that maybe aren't married, that want to own something for themselves instead of throwing money away and not ever getting anywhere, because rents aren't really coming down. I'm not seeing that. That might be a conversation. But you brought up a good point. I remember that 300K now becomes 220, or it becomes less because of the interest, correct?
Yeah, well, like and it depends on what his pre-approval was at. Because if his pre-approval was at, like, let's say it was, to make it easy, numbers 3.5%, which is half of, we'll call it half of what it is now. It's a little bit less than half, or it's a little bit less than half, because now the rates are higher. But we'll just call it 7% today, and then we'll just say his was 3.5%. So that takes his buying power basically by half. So if he was able to buy 300, now he's able to buy probably around 150, 175.
And that's based on the payment, correct? Because his ability to come up with that monthly mortgage payment hasn't really been affected. The employers aren't going, hey, the mortgage rates are up, I'm going to pay you more money, right?
Well, they did give raises in the last 2 years, but they only gave, I know some people, they're like, oh, I got $1 raise. I'm like, you got ripped off. Like, no, I didn't. Like, what are you talking? And they get offended. I'm like, inflation is at 10% this month. Like, did you get a 10% raise? No, I got $1. I'm like, how much you getting paid now? They're like, oh, I'm getting paid. I was getting paid 20, now I'm getting paid 21. I'm like, you should have got a $2 raise, because the same thing as inflation, but you're getting ripped off, So, but yeah, no, you're right. It's not. It's employers are not giving more because interest rates. There's a lot of businesses that are going to have to cut down.
Sure.
And it's slowly been tapering and happening here and there, where people are getting laid off, and and it's going to keep on have to happen, because if the labor market stays strong, but then inflation is still going to be high, and the interest rate is going to have to go up. Now, in order to combat that, you have to slow businesses down in order for inflation to come down, because that way they can stop their spending. They need to then they'll have more inventory. You're having so much demand still in the marketplace, and if there's still a lot of demand, the inflation is not going to get affected too much. So they're gonna have to.
And so for us, majority of our buyers are essentially gearing up for holding it, right? We have to make deals attractive enough to where they're holding and raking in the rent to wait out these rates, and to wait out the buyers and and the sellers. Basically, for the market to flip more on the seller side, because that's where they make their large sum.
Yeah.
In the meantime, they're going to be taking 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever 100 they can make every month just on this investment. So it's a slower trickle. Do you feel like a lot of the investors that we're selling to just got cold feet now? They're waiting. They're sitting and waiting.
I would say a majority of them either is now priced out. They're waiting. They're scared. It's just a combination of a lot of things that are uncertain. And the ones that are still buying, I think those are the big dogs, because they can be in the game to gamble.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that if they buy it and now they're upside down on it. Screw it. I'll just rent it out and wait until the market comes back up. And then I'll flip it and sell it. So now I think their buying criteria is probably where it's like, okay, if I could spend a little bit amount of money, and if the market takes a turn, I could just rent it really quick and I'd make some money. Now, if or versus something that's like it's going to take 3 months, 3 to 4 months, like a full rehab to be done. It's going to be like, whoa, that's going to cost me way too much. Like, yeah, it's going to probably cost me 35-40,000, but the time is where it's going to be, where I'm going to lose the money. So we're that's what we're kind of seeing, is that type of adjustment. And the big hedge funds, they're buying, but they're not buying as crazy as they were a year ago. So
Yeah.
they kind of slowed down a little bit. So it's just it's tough. And then to go back to your cousin is like, so for example, like if he was approved for 175, what can he get in this market? He can't get a house. He could barely, a condo now is probably around, it's around like an okay condo is probably around like 175, 200 still. A house is probably, now it's around 310, 305. And that's a like 1,000 or 1,200 square foot home is like 305, 310. So the market is going to have to adjust down in order for buyers to come back to the market, no matter what the interest rates are. But we're on a slow decline when it comes to prices. We're on a high up climb when it comes to interest rates, and it's not evening out.
You know what I was surprised to see? I just checked out Bloomberg report on markets that are seeing a decrease in pricing, and Las Vegas wasn't in there, and Reno was. And I was like, what's keeping Las Vegas out of that list? Because there's a list of 10 cities all over the United States, and when it comes to Nevada, I saw Reno on there. I think they were around 6% decrease in their home prices. But why?
Hello. Nick.
Yeah. Did you hear my question?
No. I didn't. All I heard was Reno and Las Vegas, and then it cut out.
Okay, yeah, I was just checking out Bloomberg on Twitter, and they posted this interesting statistics of the markets in which home prices have plummeted. And I think their highest was over 7%. Reno was in there around between 5 and 6. I'm going to try to find my post.
Is it like top 10 or top 20 or
top 10? And Vegas is not in there. I was wondering what's keeping Vegas in the game. You just mentioned that we're on the slow price decrease, but fast rate hike. How come Vegas prices haven't been affected, do you think?
I don't know what numbers they're looking at, but I know that we're just on a slow decline, and I don't think we hit 10% decline yet, but it's going to keep going down, and I don't think we're going to be probably top 10 at the end of all of this. The reason why I say that is because you have California. A lot of cities in California, they blew up. Like there's some towns that like my wife is from, and she saw his family from, where they've seen it's Salinas, California. So cities around there, it's like there's nothing really around there. It's like nothing but like lettuce fields and like just agriculture. And like people were able to sell their house for and these were not great houses. They're like $500,000 to $800,000-$900,000, and it's like what? And they might get a little bit of land, like maybe half acre or something, but the house wasn't spectacular. It was very average. So you're seeing spikes in housing in places where they're not supposed to be spiking like that. Versus like Vegas, we're still growing market. We keep on. I think we're growing, year over year with new attractions and all that stuff. But you know, I think we are going to be on a decline, but I don't think we're going to be top 10 this time around, which is good.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be nearly around there, but it will keep declining. But I just think like markets like New York, like the bigger markets, New York, Chicago, California, uh, maybe Washington, and I know Oregon for sure. Oregon for sure is going to be in the mix, probably like near the 8, 9, or 10, just because of everything what's going on over there, like either politically, you know, just a lot
Yeah,
of
Oregon was at the top of the list. Yeah.
really.
I don't know if it was number one, but it was
But it
definitely
was
up
near
there.
there. Well, I mean, the reason why I say that is because like I'm not sure if you've heard, but it was I think it was 2020 or 2019 where they approved that you can legally have and consume meth.
Meth? I thought
Yeah.
it was mushrooms they legalized, but now it's meth too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they legalized mushrooms, which is cool, but that was like 2018. But yeah, so that like you could literally, and that's why you see if you look it up in Oregon, like Portland, there's just a bunch of like camps and all this stuff that people are just they just go homeless on purpose because they legalize heroin, they legalize meth. Like you can literally go out there and do it. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
that's why I think like people are just trying to get out of that type of environment. Same thing with California. Washington, I don't know if Seattle has always been I never understood why Seattle is always like a really good market to be in, and it's always a high market. I've never understood that. But it's a beautiful place. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think a lot of that trickled down from Canada. My brother went, what's up from there? Vancouver, right?
yeah, yeah.
And he went to Vancouver, and this was years ago. He went to some science conference, and he came back, and he was telling me horror stories about, people just shooting up in the street and having all these clinics where they can go and get a dose so that they don't die from withdrawals. And
In
I kind of,
Vancouver?
I kind of thought he was exaggerating, because it was absolutely decriminalized, but also they wanted people to be able to shoot up safely, essentially,
Yeah.
to where they're not
Vancouver?
reusing needles and they're doing heroin in these kind of like quasi medical facilities.
Yeah.
And the people that he saw in the street, he was like, it was very scary, not in terms of very safety, but you just look at the people and go, you see the deterioration right in front of your eyes. It's, prostitution during the day and druggies everywhere and homeless encampments and all that. So it's funny how that sort of trickled down maybe to Seattle, because even though we have a border geographically, they're very close, in proximity. And then same with Oregon, very liberal area as well. So do you think folks that maybe aren't with that agenda, that maybe have, other values, are they moving down to these sort of purple states like Nevada, like Arizona, and they're saying, hey, I've seen what these policies do to this city. Maybe I'll go somewhere like Nevada that sort of still has the contingent of, rural contingent of farmers and, very traditional and very conservative type of element. Is that what's holding us up now? Because they're converting their sales in those states into ownership in our state.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say, yeah, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Montana, Florida,
Idaho.
probably like the South and stuff. Yeah, Ohio. So there's a lot of like good going around, like where people are just moving out. And my thing is like there's gonna come a point where there has to be some type of point, because I see all the time where people are selling their house in California and they're like, oh, I just sold my house for like 2.2 million. And it's like, oh wow, how big was it? Oh, it was 1,300 square foot. I'm like, what? Like, and there has to come a point, like, who is buying these houses to allow these people to move out? And once those people aren't able to buy those houses, they're going to be kind of stuck and they're going to want to move out, kind of thing. And I don't know. Yeah, with just these interest rates, I don't really, me personally, I don't really see who the end buyer is and who it would actually help. Yes, like you said, you can negotiate the price. Yes, you can get closing costs. Yes, you could get all that. But what I'm seeing is people that bought a house 2 months ago that are like, oh, I got, $15,000 in closing costs, got to buy down with that closing cost, this and that. Now that house is worth, if they bought it for 300, now it's worth like 260.
Mhm.
Was it worth it? Because what I was reading this thing, but I was reading this article where they said that short sales might come back, but at the same point is I don't think it's going to be as crazy as it was before, because even if I bought a house and I really love the house and I could afford the mortgage, I'll buy it. I think that would be the buyer is that person's like, yeah, I'm content with the price. I can
With the
pay it.
monthly, right?
Yeah, if as long as my monthly's good, I don't care. Because I love this house because it has everything that I need, me and my family need. So I think that those are the only people that are gonna benefit off of it. And then if the interest rates get better, it's like cool, then I'll just refi. If they get worse, cool. Like I'll just keep paying my payment. So
Do you think the market's going to open up for more of a tiny home kind of scenario and maybe more apartments like
I think
for
so.
those builders? Because it seems like the traditional house of a front yard, backyard, gated community, it's becoming a straight up luxury, seems like,
Yeah.
the millennials, whatever, let's call them Gen Zs, the young folks, in their 20s, I think they're not as tied into the concept of I gotta have two cars, two-car garage, I gotta have a front yard, backyard. Like even for them, it's already a luxury. A lot more young people are not in cars, they're on scooters, they're on skateboards, they're on whatever, on the bus even, and like
Yeah.
public transport.
Yeah.
They're more green movement oriented where they don't necessarily see a Hummer or a big, like Escalade as a social credit kind of thing. Like in my generation, hey, that's what you got. You got a big truck, you got a Tahoe, you got an
Yep.
Escalade. You got something fancy on them big rims, and who cares how much gas it guzzles? But
Yep.
now with the gas pricing, with the economy, with the rentals, with everything, perhaps let's say you and me had a builder company. Just let me kind of pitch it to you this way. Let's say we're builders. I think it's going to be an easier pill to swallow for these consumers in their 20s if I sell them tiny home that maybe you're wall to wall with your neighbor. It's no more than 1,200 square feet, but it's very ergonomical, right? It has the upstairs, downstairs. It's like
Yep.
it's using the space in a very different way. There's no front yard, backyard, but you have community features. Maybe there's one pool that everybody goes to, one basketball court. Like you start picking up the community features. Do you think that's going to be kind of where it goes? Because with these rates, if you're no longer buying 300K of a home, that means no, the builder isn't building the 300K home anymore. So the
Yeah.
builder is now going, maybe I'll build something for 180 for like people like my cousin. It's a one-car garage. It's no yard whatsoever, but it has all these cool perks, and a way for young people to socially interact and have movie nights. And do you see what I'm saying? Sort of
Yep.
a more of a commune feel versus the traditional American model of my house, my fortress. You see what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I think you're right. It is the generation of the people in their 20s, people in their mid to early 30s is because like I feel like I'm an outlier when it comes to the population where within my age group. And the reason why I say that is because like I have a family. Now you do not see that from like anyone from their mid 30s and under. There's not a lot of younger families. Like there is, but there's not a lot. There's
Right.
most of them are single, and they, like you said, that they don't really care about cars. They'd rather have like a bike or a motor scooter or something along those lines, where it's like easy transportation, or if it's like their job is walking distance, oh, they'll love to walk to work.
Exactly.
And because I have a few friends like that, and I'm like, the hell, like who, like why would you want to do that? Like he lives downtown. One of them lives downtown, and just enjoys the whole downtown environment. And I'm like, nah, I couldn't do that. And he just either walks to work or works from home, and and just, yeah, just like, just does that. But it's, yeah, like you said, it's more of a social thing. So I do see um tiny homes or apartments that are like luxury apartments that have
Sure.
nice countertops, this and that. That way people just because I don't know if a lot of these people really care about owning now, because most of these most of this generation that we're dealing with that are younger, they went through it with their parents, where they, in 2008, where they're like, oh, like I saw that the banks did this, and they took my family's this, like why, makes them not want to buy, because it's kind of like a
Sure.
tragic event. And it's like, you know what? It's easier to possibly rent than it is to buy. I might just buy down the road, but that's not a big thing for me right now. I just want to go have fun, hang out, and just work and, live my life, kind of thing, and like be kind of free. And that's what I kind of see in this generation is that. And I can see tiny homes being a big thing for the future, where even if someone rents it or if they purchase it, and yeah, and that's basically the way I see it. So
Yeah, yeah, because you're right, and maybe the builders are going to take note of that, because you remember like 20 years ago, apartments weren't really trying to appease to any type of contingent. They're like, hey, this is the apartments, pretty
yep,
straightforward. We do have a gate. Here's the pool. Here's a little tiny gym, and that was that.
yep,
That's good enough. I think now they're going to see that. Well, no, wait, we do have a lot of families that live here now. Let's build a park. Let's add a park. Let's have, in Vegas, we're very lucky with all types of parks almost around every corner. That's another thing that was sort of very recent. I think in the last 10
yeah,
years,
very true.
every community sort of has like an adjacent park of sorts, next to it. To where you can, okay, I live in a small little place, but all I do there is cook and get on my Wi-Fi. Everything else, I'm out. I'm hiking.
Yep.
I'm going to the little park with my kids, and so looks like maybe culturally it'll have to also shift a little bit to where it's not looked down upon to rent like it maybe used to. What the hell are you doing? You're just wasting money, right? Or what are you doing with this tiny thing? Buy yourself a house.
Yeah,
Maybe nowadays it's going to be like, well, the apartment's 1,400 square feet, but it's very smartly designed. It still has some neat upgrades. I could still invite people. But guess what? If I want to throw a big birthday party, I could rent out the clubhouse. The clubhouse has everything. It has pool, it has a gym, it has a full court basketball court. Like adding those things might help investors and builders sort of reframing, what is in demand.
yeah, no, I totally believe that. That's really, really true. And yeah, that's why I kind of see what could be going on, because I've also seen where they're talking about here, like getting zoning done and everything for tiny homes, where they're adding the zoning verbiage and everything um, like to the zoning codes, so that way they can actually be able to build it and everything. They're going to do it by either next year or in 2024. So
Yeah, that's what I heard too. And to your point, going back a little bit in our conversation about our clients, right? Like our buyers and them having to deal, because very few of our buyers are just sitting on, Scrooge McDuck kind of cash, right? They're
yeah,
they're still borrowing, right? They're still going to the banks and borrowing, and when their funds are hard money, guess what? Hard money is not at 7%. It's going to be a few percentage points higher. So maybe that's why we're seeing a bit of a decrease in interest, right? Because they have to do that math of, okay, I'm borrowing hard money. It's a higher interest rate. My payment is here. I got to make sure my rent, exceeds my monthly. And maybe that's the balancing act they're having a problem with. I would imagine, if I was to look at buying something and holding it, right? Let's just say you and I want to buy and hold. We're switching our model. We're just buying and holding, and we're flowing until the economy does something, right? Well, now we're looking at hard money. We're looking at inflated monthly payments. Plus, we got to maybe have some type of home warranty on there. Our expenses as a homeowner are up there. So do you think that the rental prices are going to go even more, or is that where we're at? Basically, the investor goes, well, crap, my payment on my hard money, right, is 2,000, but the rent is 2,100. Like, I'm not about to gamble for just $100 profit, right? Just to say I'm owning a property. What do you think?
I think if it comes down to it, there's a lot of investors I know that are like, you know what, I'd rather break even on the rental and just to be able to hold it until the market takes a turn, and then I'll do that. So I know a lot of people that would either rather make that $100 per month than to just try to flip it, and then you're losing more money trying to hold it, not hold it, but you're holding it, and while it's on the market, and it's like you're not going to sell it, kind of thing. And so I see a lot of people, they're probably going to take either break even or take a small loss every month
Yeah.
in order to get it done. But at the same time too, is like the rental market is lower than like you can get a house between like $1,900 to $2,100 for a decent house for rent, versus if you bought that same house, your mortgage would be, you know, 25 to almost $3,000 for that same house. So it's cheaper to rent. You know, that's what I kind of see more people doing. They're like, oh, you know, I'm getting priced out, I'll wait, I'll just go rent again. And there's a lot of people out there just like, well, you know, renting is, you know, it's you're not really getting anything out of it, you're just paying someone else's mortgage, just that. But at the same point, it's like, you know, you got to think about that person and their financial situation. It's like, okay,
Sure.
find me a house that I can get for that monthly price, and I'll buy it. And it's not going to happen, not today.
Yeah.
It will happen, but it not today. So
And they were saying, again, on some channel I was watching, that the inflation is to the point where you have to work like basically an extra month to cover your year. Like, you follow me? You have to work 13 months to cover 12 months. So it's like adding a whole month, or like this, you add your monthly expenses, divide them by 12. That's how much the inflation's affecting a normal consumer. And so they're sitting there like, to your point, wait a second, I will rent simply because on the other side of rent, there's also my expenditure, my groceries, my gas,
yeah,
you know, my school for kids or whatever else, right? If all these other services and goods are coming up in price, then the person they're not making a decision based on own versus rent. Rent is 100% loss of your money. They're just making a decision based on, hey, what doesn't keep me on the street is
it's a
what
financial
makes my
it's a
decision.
financial decision.
Right.
It's a living decision where it's like, you know, it's like, yes, I understand, I get all your points, but why would I, you know, live in a nice house, you know, and I could get that same house and I could rent it for almost $1,000 cheaper. So, and I know, you know, and I've also considered, I'm like, I wonder, like, if I decide to move, it's like, I wonder if I were able to rent my house and then go out there and just rent a house rather than buying it, just because it's, you know, if the AC goes out on that house that I'm renting, I don't have to, I just call
That's right.
the landlord and be like, hey, AC went out, fix it. You know, and
Yeah.
you know, it's a little bit easier. And then once the market kind of takes a turn, then it's like, okay, yeah, now I could go and buy something. You know, so it's yeah, it's very it's a crazy time right now. And there's just a lot of people that are promising a lot of people, like, because I'll have other realtor friends that call me like, oh yeah, this is how the market is, yada yada yada. And they're like, yeah, you know, the rates will come down soon. And I'm like, you better not be telling that to your clients, because like, who knows? These might be rates to stay. And if they're here to stay, the prices are gonna have to come down to adjust with the prices. Like, you know, and they're like, oh no, it's not gonna drop that much. It's like, you do you understand like economics when it comes to like affordability? Like no one's gonna buy something if it's out of their reach
Sure.
and they can't afford it per month versus like, okay, like, yeah, I could afford this. Like if someone gets a raise, they're not gonna be like, oh, I got a raise and I'm gonna go buy a house for $3,000 a month while I'm renting something that's 1,800 bucks. Says no one. And if you do that,
Right.
you're gonna get foreclosed on because you're making a dumb decision.
Right. Unless you're gonna start sub-renting rooms in your house,
Yeah.
like that's the only way, and maybe that's what's gonna have to happen because people are Airbnb-ing a lot more just to keep up with their bills, right? Hey,
Yeah.
you know what, honey? We're not using that 1/4 bedroom as much. Let's rent that out. Matter of fact, my brother-in-law is renting and living with a family, like something I would have thought was asinine 10 years ago. I could see living with like your homies, your friends, your whoever, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's a family with like a 12-year-old daughter, husband, wife, 12-year-old daughter, and this guy is renting an upstairs section of their house. And guess what? It may not be something they prefer, but they're sitting there going, it's either this or we lose the house. Let's wait these times out and bring in extra income because we can. You can't do that in a tiny house, but these houses that we used to buying, right? There may be 4 bedrooms, 2,500 square feet. You've got the backyard and all that. Perhaps that could be something that people look at. Let me ask you on these other states, right? Like Oregon, and California, with basically open drug scenes and everything like that. So let's say their prices drop. Do you think it's a future opportunity for guys like us to eventually grab it, as long as they change their policies, right? What's to say in the next 10 years, people don't get fed up in Oregon and they go, guys, look what's happened. These policies led to nothing but Gotham City right in my freaking doorstep, all right?
Yeah.
I don't want to get raped, pillaged, and burned alive just for living here. Maybe they press the politicians to change those policies, but by then, the entry into some of the prime Oregon real estate, prime California real estate, is way lower. I feel like perhaps, keeping an eye on something like that could eventually produce opportunities. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I do think that, and that's why I've kind of been waiting on is kind of California by the beach to get something like that. But the thing is like I've heard that with Santa Monica, they're starting to tank bad because from they're like really close to Venice Beach, and Venice Beach it's cool, but I've heard it's way more drug infested. And then once 2020 came around, Santa Monica went down, and that used to be one of my favorite beaches to go to because you had the mall there, you had so much, there was so much there to do, and there was good food to eat. But now
the promenade.
What's that?
The promenade. I used to live at the promenade.
Yeah. But now it's just people just got ran out of there, and because of their laws and everything. So I think in the next 10 years it will change. And if you look, what I've heard, Santa Monica used to be like a shithole back in like the 80s and 80s, 90s, and it came back up and it started being nice again, and then now it's turning into shit again. It's and I think I think it would be a good buy. I don't know about Santa Monica because it always, as history's shown, that it just keeps on, like, it'll get nice again, then it'll get bad. It'll get nice again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would be a good place to buy Oregon too, but it just has to change policies and to change the policies. Like in Oregon, for instance, I know that they voted on like majority of this stuff to be, like, the people voted on majority of this stuff to be legalized. And I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's been taken a little bit too far. Like weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, it's that should be legalized. Like and you could see that it's bringing a lot of revenue, and I think it could possibly fight inflation.
Sure.
But like legalizing like mushrooms
Hard
are not
drugs.
bad, but the hard stuff, like they took it too far, and and most of the people there voted on it, and that's how it got passed. And
Right.
I think it had to have gotten 60% or more. It was either 60 or 55% or more in votes, and it obviously got that. And so Oregon would be a nice one. Always heard Oregon's really nice, and I've been to Oregon, uh, but I don't know. It's just I don't know if it would change, but if it does change,
Yeah.
it would be a good buying opportunity for sure.
Yeah, no, and that's what we kind of have to watch for, because if the policy changes and all of a sudden they go, hey guys, you can't just shoot up in the park next to the kids playing on the swing, then maybe families go, you know what, I don't mind. Maybe there is a back part of town, and that's where some activity is taking place. But for the most part, my neighborhood's okay. Taking my kids to school is no problem. I'm not going to encounter somebody doing a number two on the street as they walk my kid.
Oh man.
Like San Francisco is another great example. Some of the highest real estate prices, and what's happened there is just a shame. And so maybe some of the stuff will change, but for us as investors, it's if the prices do tank and then we could buy there, and now all of a sudden the families are coming back, the businesses are coming back, the rental market is strengthening and strengthening, and people want to live there, that could be an opportunity to be aware of in the future.
Yeah, it would have to take a majority of California to move out of California, but there's just so many people in California. I don't know if it will. It should, because I think it's well, it's not overpopulated. It's like over inflated with their prices, but people are
Right.
still buying, which is insane to me. But you know, I guess
Well,
it's
they're leveraging against inflation, right? I mean, is that sort of the idea? What if the inflation gets way worse than we think? What if next, 10 years, a loaf of bread is $1,000? Because that's something I've seen coming from where I come from. We had the ruble crash so hard that they had to print new rubles, you
yeah,
know? And I mean, I remember being a student having to bring thousands and thousands of these rubles to purchase just regular household items. You're
wow,
carrying all this paper, and we didn't have credit cards. So
yeah,
um, how inflation, like Venezuela, right? Like what happened in the Soviet Union, what happened in some of these economies, like the before World War II Germany. It was the same thing. The Deutschmark, people were burning them just to stay warm. It was just worthless. And
yeah,
so that's being, of course, on the extreme side, and that's what they're trying to fight right now with the Fed Reserve, is the inflation of that magnitude. But if it does, then maybe that's what they're thinking. Hey, I'll invest because at least my payment doesn't change. And if tomorrow $1,000 is a loaf of bread and my payment is still $3,000, who cares? You see what I
yeah.
mean? I've leveraged against inflation, and I have a California home.
Yeah, no, it's very true. But at the same point, is like how is how are you supposed to like it would have to be like a slow deep it would have to be like a slow process for something like that to happen, especially here in America, because like if a loaf of bread is $1,000, you think that people are gonna out of nowhere just going to get paid more? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's what they had to do. They had to completely redo the currency, and they're like, "Hey, bring in your old worthless paper. We'll exchange it for the new stuff." And then hopefully that those economic measures work. It'd have to be something that the government will have to, from top down, enforce and change. But no, absolutely not. They're not going to be paying you more because, well, maybe they will. I don't know economy to that level. I
yeah,
feel like I'm a little out of my comfort zone on those type of topics, but that's the only reason why I can guess somebody would be paying those high prices for California. Is real estate is a great hedge against inflation, and inflation is happening.
yeah. And that's what I guess I don't get is that part is where people are like, oh yeah, real estate is a hedge against inflation, which I get it, but at the same time I don't get it, because like kind of what you said is like if we wake up tomorrow and bread is $1,000 and your payment's $3,000, yeah, it's cheaper, but like, what if it, like, I don't know, it could go either way. Like, what if it's not? What if it is? You know? But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, why would someone, like, why would I, as a realtor, why would I help someone to buy a house today worth 300, and then tomorrow now it's worth 250? Yeah, they might be happy with the price and everything, but if the market keeps going down, you know, I don't want to be that person where they're like, oh, well, you sold me this house and this and that. It's like, well, I told you everything, that you need to know, and still be blamed for something like that. And it's like, I don't know.
I think that's a golden rule when you're dealing on the realtor side with your clients. You have to really have that earnest conversation with them and say, are you comfortable with this payment for 30 years? Because this is a 30-year mortgage, no matter what happens. Because on one side, it's understandable. I would tell you, yes, Josh, I'm comfortable. I can make this money. I can definitely come up with this money. That's not a problem. Whatever, $2,000. I know I will, even if I drive Uber, okay, all day and night, I'll come up with that money. I'll pay it. But human nature, I think, is what gets us in trouble, right? Because that was my parents. They lost in that 08 situation. They looked around and houses bigger and nicer than theirs were selling for 100K less. And they go, wait a minute, that's not fair. Why are we paying for less home higher? They're not going back to that conversation with their realtor, whether or not they had it or not. I'm not going to. I'm going to say, unfair. That's not fair. I live in 1,500 square foot home. I pay $3,000. These guys are buying mansions for less. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's a human nature that comes in and people go, screw that. I'm going to call my bank. And the bank is like, dude, you signed on a dotted line for 30 years. What do you want me to do? So maybe they'll work with their payment. Maybe they'll do some kind of remod, right? Yeah. Remodification. So that's the only thing, is you just have to go back to your bank and hope and beg that they'll do some kind of remod for you.
Yeah. I could see that, but yeah, it's just like how banks are, like, as I was dealing with them, like, with people from 2008, even as far as 2018, 2019, where they just kept on modding, and it really doesn't help people. It just helps consolidate a little bit and catch them up to get in a better position, but it really doesn't help with price or anything like that. 'Cause it's like,
right.
I'm on the dotted line for that price. Like, we can't control the market. And I think that's what happens, is like kind of going back to what we were saying earlier with the generation, is they kind of see the up and down of it. And a lot of them, they're not gamblers, or they're not the risk takers. You don't really have to be a risk taker to buy a house, but they see the main price of it, but they don't see like the monthly price of it. It's like, well, that house was worth 300, now it's worth 250. It's like, yeah, but the mortgage on it is only $2,000. What's your rent? Well, my rent's 2,500. Like, yes, so it's cheaper, but I still lost 50 grand.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. Like, are you selling right now? No, you're not. Okay, well,
Yeah.
You didn't lose anything. Like, that's the balance of it, where it's like you're not losing nothing, but you're not really gaining anything. Like, you're paying your payment. Just, you enjoy your house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I think that's something you have to have conversations about. Is,
yeah,
look, if it happens, yeah, maybe it's less now, but the buyer now has to deal with a higher interest rate. So what worries do you want to have on your plate? You know what I mean?
yeah. So I think, based on our our other podcast, I still, to this day, believe that it still comes down to affordability.
Yeah.
With these interest rates, because no matter the interest rate, it could be 50%, it still has to be affordable. Like, the house has to be affordable
Monthly. Yeah.
monthly. That's what's going to have to come down to, and we're not down to that part yet. And I think that's why we're slowing down in real estate, is because of that. Now, if the prices came down to where people could afford, then you would see the market just explode. It'd be
Explode. Yeah.
But as you can see, like before 2020, kind of like what your cousin is doing is he's living with people, and that's what this type of market does to you is it's like, okay, I can't live in my own house, so we have to condense down into living with each other. And then it becomes more of a like comfortable, where people are just comfortable with, other family members living with them, everyone pitching in.
Yeah.
Now everyone's comfortable. Everyone's like, okay, I have my expenses. I have, the play money, and we're all living our lives and having a great time in this one house. And
Right.
once the market gets better, they're like, do we really want to move out? Because we're gonna lose, $800 from, Bob over here, and then Bob's not gonna. He's gonna be also losing another $800 because his $800 plus another $800 going to go towards his mortgage. Like, is it going to benefit us? So I
Mhm.
seen that kind of happen after 2008, like probably, like 2013 to 2016. A lot of people were like, do we really want to move out? Are these prices going to stay? Like it was just all this uncertainty. So I see it's kind of going back to like 2008, where people are going back and moving with each other because cheaper. And everyone's kind of nervous that they're going to lose their job and all this stuff. So it's kind of going back into that. Now with the market, I don't think the market's going to crash like how it did, but I do think it will historically crash. Like I think a real estate crash is considered 20%. So I think we will, some markets will be worse than others, but I think general speaking, I think we will be around 20 to probably 25% as a nation that we will drop.
Do
So
you think that the investors and even residential buyers are going to have more interest in fourplexes and triplexes? Because it's one thing to live with your family under actual one roof and one kitchen, but it's another to sort of house hack, and you have the bigger, maybe the two-bedroom in the fourplex, and then the rest of your family has, maybe two and two ones. You know what I mean? Like, do you think there's going to be more interest in that?
well, I'm not sure if you've heard, but in California, I think it was 2020 or 2021, they did a rezoning ordinance, or whatever you want to call it, like a new law that they put in place, is all of California is now zoned for multifamily.
All of
So
it.
all of it. So no matter where you live, if you have property, you can now build an additional dwelling and make it into a duplex, or demolish your house and turn your whole property into a small apartment complex, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
As long as it's not in the HOA. And then HOA might, you'd have to get the approval from the HOA in order to do that. But if you're not in the HOA, it's free game. And there's a lot of, that's why like during 2020, 2021, there was a lot of properties that had these, it was like an acre, and then there would be this small house for, like 800 square feet, but it's on an acre, and they would sell for, $5 million. And people are like, the fuck? Like, there's nothing in this house that's worth 5 million. Like, what are you doing? What they would do is they would clean up the land, flatten the land, and then put either multiple houses on it, or do a few high rises. And then now they could go and resell that as a cash flowing property, like
Sure.
15, 20 million. So they bought something for 5, built it probably for another 5, and then sold it for 20. Now they just made
Yeah.
10 million, you know?
Yeah, the zoning is always something to pay attention to. It's not something I realized until getting into real estate, but that is, if you can get multi-zoning approved, then guess what? That same acre becomes a cash cow in
Oh, yeah.
theory. And then the only thing that you have to take a hit on is the initial building of it, but then you're flowing cash no matter what.
Oh, yeah. So like that's what's happening in California right now is, and I think that's another reason why it's growing, is because there's people that that are either building onto their house, or that have, a second illegal unit. Now they're like, oh shit, now it's legal. And
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
sell that as a duplex, triplex. And there's investors getting that are getting very creative, where Like, okay, well, I can actually put a wall straight down here, add a bathroom here, add a kitchen, and now I have a duplex. Now I can sell it as cash flowing property. So you have a lot of that going on where they're buying up and doing all this. So that's
Yeah, I mean, even if you put a mobile home, even if you had to attach it to your land, so
Yeah.
be it. But it costs you, say, 100K, but now it's flowing you so much in rent that it's paying for itself within a few years.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
Yeah.
even if you buy, like, I wouldn't even buy a mobile home. You could add a unit for probably in California, probably 20, 30,000. And then now you're going to be cash flowing the same thing as a mobile home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's as long as it's on your land, you build something, and now you're Airbnb-ing it. Now you're long-term renting it. You're
Yep.
cash flowing. So maybe that's another thing that will have to be looked at is for people that own land, how do they maximize their ownership?
Yeah, and there's still articles out there too that are also saying that there's a need um for more housing because we're in a housing shortage. And I'm like, we kind of are in a housing shortage, but it's still not going to drive up demand. Where people are like, oh, there's a housing shortage, and I'm gonna go out and buy a house now. It's like I don't think that's going to be the case. And that's what's happening with a lot of these builders is they were banking on the housing shortage, and now they're short on buyers.
Yeah, yeah, they got a shortage, all right. Different kind of shortage.
Oh man, yeah. So there's a lot of people pulling out because if your build was 6 months out, 9 months out, 13 months out, like people are pulling out or just losing their earnest money, and
Yeah,
because they can't get approved anymore. You
that's
know,
right. Yeah.
so
Well,
and
dude, you want to wrap it up for today before we
yeah.
get into deeper economic waters than you and I can handle?
Yes. Do you have anything else for the people or anything?
For the people, no. Just stay tuned. We're going to be bringing up an interesting topic. I think we're going to save the topic of what you and I talked about for next week. So just stay tuned. Always hit like, subscribe, check us out on our website, and we're having some more deals come down the pipeline. So for those investors that are following us, we're going to be sending information out into your email boxes. So stay
Yep.
hustling, my friends.
Yep. And if you want to get on the email list, just comment down below or try to, I think you could DM us on YouTube. Not sure, but you could always comment down below your email. Just say you want to be added to the list, and we'll add you to the list. So
Yeah, yeah, or just go to our website. All of our particulars are on there. Call us, text us. We're open to talking. So thanks for watching, guys.
yep. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye.